Welcome back to Briggs on Books. We've been talking today with authors all over the world and finding some really interesting books that are out there and getting to meet the authors and learn a little bit about them. The next author, we haven't talked very much, but I got a feeling this could be a fascinating interview. Our guest is Lawrence James, a nurse, registered nurse, a pastor, and now an author. Welcome, James.
Thank you.
And now, by the way, your book, the title, maybe it says it all, The Spiritual Experiences of Hospice Nurses. Tell us about the book, James. Lawrence James, sorry, Lawrence.
Oh, okay. The book is about redemption and regret. And the stories depict actual patients, what went on with them spiritually, physically, and how the families are assisted in being part of it so they don't feel left out. And also the families are assisted before and after the patient passes.
Before and after.
So they don't just turn them loose. They make sure they're going to be okay.
Yeah. Now, I asked you, I said, you're a pastor. You told me yes. You were a registered nurse for how long?
Over 30 years and a pastor since 2000.
And you became a pastor for what reason?
To help my patients.
To help the patients.
Because I didn't always have a pastor there or a chaplain.
Yeah.
And so I needed to increase my knowledge base on that.
Yeah. Now, have you always been a hospice nurse, or did you practice some other kind of nursing before that?
I did a little bit of everything. And the reason I got interested in hospice is I was working for an infusion company. Mm. And they sent me over to start an IV and put in a hospice patient on a mini fusion pump with morphine.
Yeah.
When I got there, this little lady was, her pain on a pain scale of 0 through 10 was a 10.
Oh, boy.
And I hooked her up to the pump, and I went back to follow up with a patient in a nursing home because the hospice had leased out like 10 beds in that home. Mm. And when I got there, she's sitting up in bed. She's joking, eating breakfast with her family, and her pain's down to a 2.
Wow.
She's still dying, but her quality of life while she's dying was dramatically improved.
Yeah. And, that had to be a very moving experience to be able to have that kind of effect on somebody.
3 months later, I hired on to hospice.
Yeah.
So it really made a big difference in what I could see. I was really making a difference in one of the most important times of people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, not everybody goes into hospice, but more and more, I think a lot of people do.
They do, and doctors are getting better educated now, and they're not waiting so long so people don't suffer. Right. And what we do is we manage your symptoms. So we manage your pain, everything physiologically, spiritually, psychosocially with the social worker, and help them get prepared for the end.
Yep.
And in my case, because I wasn't pastor, if they wanted to become a Christian, I could go ahead and baptize them and take care of that for them.
Baptize them right
So
there.
it was very special for me.
Yeah. And does that happen sometimes?
It happened, well, through the years, it happened probably over 100 times.
Over 100 times, yeah. Yeah.
So, and what I did was, when I was 17, I joined the Navy. Mm. And I started a journal. And I've got about 8,000 pages in my journal now.
Wow. And
so I had plenty of material.
You pulled it right out of your journal to write the book?
Yeah. Everything is from the journals in the book, and I've already written 2 more books, and they should come out next year sometime.
Yeah, yeah. I try to talk to people about how important journaling is, because you just can't remember things exactly, but with the journal, you put things in date and perspective and order and things like that.
Oh, and it made a big difference. When I was in 6th grade, my teacher,
yeah,
she said, Lawrence, you could probably be a writer someday, and you should start a journal.
Wow.
And in the back of my mind, I kept that,
Yeah.
And then when I got on that ship, at 17 years old, I said, I got to start the journal.
You started it when you got in the Navy?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, hospice, does hospice have to be at a facility, or can people do hospice at home?
They can do, I did both. I did hospice at home and in the facilities. Mm-hmm. And I was once even a unit manager of a hospice.
Yeah.
inpatient unit.
You were. Now tell us about, now you say experiences, multiple, and nurses, multiple. You want to tell us about some of the experiences?
Well, my favorite patient, this is a little short story. She was a Irish lady. She was 5 foot tall, about 80 pounds, and she had metastatic cancer. And I was just lightly ambulating her down the hall. She wanted to walk a little bit.
Yeah.
And she told me, she said, Lawrence, I asked my father, why am I 5 foot tall when my brother's 6'2", and my other brother's 6'5", and my sister's 5'9"? And she said, he picked me up and hugged me, and he said, I'm sorry, darling, but the year that we made you, we were running short of material. So just really neat people.
Little things like that, yeah.
And one of them, the first story in the book is called Ribs and Beer. And it was about a gentleman who worked with another man. They started out as electricians. Their families went to church together, and they both ended up starting their own companies. And he's dying, and I get a call from the wife, and she says, I need you to come over here and talk to him. He says he keeps seeing his best friend. He's standing there with a bucket of ribs and a 12-pack of beer saying, come with me, come with me.
Oh, boy.
So I went over and I talked to him, and then I asked her, can we call his friend's house and see if he could talk to him? When she called over there, that morning at 6 a.m., his friend died, had a massive heart attack on the job and passed away. And so I went and I told him, I said, that was your friend coming to prepare the way for you.
Prepare the way. Wow. That's a great story. Are there more stories like that in the book?
Yes, sir.
A whole bunch of them, I would imagine.
I've got probably about 500 stories.
Wow.
They're short stories, but
Now, who should be reading this book?
anybody. I wrote the book so that anybody can read it. It would be really good for doctors to really see what nurses do.
Yes.
And new doctors that don't know a lot about hospice and getting that interpersonal relationship with patients would be great for them. And anybody that from 18 up, they're good stories, and they're very heartwarming. Some of them will make you cry, and some of them will make you laugh.
Will the book help prepare people for when they have to put their parents in hospice or put themselves in hospice?
It will really help them because they'll learn what to expect, and before that, what they need to do to get in place. And one of the biggest ones is the living will.
Living will. There's a lot of
Because
things, a lot to learn.
Yeah, their needs will be taken care of. And I experienced in my own family with a brother, we got in an argument over my father on how he should be buried.
Yeah.
Because he didn't write that will.
Right.
So I personally felt what that was like.
I'm sure you've seen many families that aren't prepared and they end up fighting, and it's a shame, you know.
And one of the things we do is we'll take them in the conference room and find out where they're at. Because Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote Death and Dying, 5 stages.
Yeah.
And the first one is denial and isolation, and that's more with family members than it is the actual patient. So each one's individual, so you have to bring them along the right way.
I'd imagine we're all going to die, Pastor. So
we're all going to die, and by working in hospice really restored my faith.
Wow, that is great.
So,
this sounds like, when I asked who should read this, you're right, everybody should read it. We all need to get ready and be prepared and have an idea where we're going and how we're going to get there and how we want to be buried or cremated, all these things that you have to think about. But I guess most of us don't think about it. We just go and hope everything works out. But in the end, it's not going to work out because we're all going to die.
the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And people avoid that. And what this will do is teach them how not to avoid it, and even involve younger family members.
Okay.
So when they get older, they'll know what to do.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is really a teaching and learning experience, and patience, kindness, and a loving, caring attitude.
And will it be a sad book? Will it be an inspiring book? Enlightening book?
I had one person that reviewed it, and she told me that it brought her back to her faith. and it was really neat how we brought people along
Yeah.
to the death and acceptance of it.
Yeah, probably, as my parents are getting older and we don't talk about anything. And, my mom, thank goodness, has been talking about her faith and where she is, but, the family's not talking about it really. So I guess maybe this book could be the bridge that helps us open up communication.
It will, and if book one doesn't do it, book two will for
Okay,
sure.
okay, I can't wait for that. Well,
They get really heavy in the book two.
I just get an idea. I have an idea here that I got to go to so many families for Christmas and Christmas parties. I always take a host gift. Why not take a book as a host gift? So for our viewers, go to Amazon, and I found this on Amazon, Lawrence. It's very easy to find. Go to Amazon. Don't click one. Click five. Buy 5 of them and take them with you to pass them out at Christmas or go to a Christmas party or anytime through the year when you have to go to somebody's house. This might be a nice host gift to take with you.
It is, and for my family, when I started working hospice, they thought I was crazy. They said, "How can you do that?" And I said, "You just don't know
Yeah.
how it makes you feel to help these people."
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you say that. It sounds like it's rewarding, and you actually make a difference in people's lives. And
here's one story I had. This gentleman, he had PTSD from World War II, and he was very confused. He comes walking out of the room, and he says, "I'm looking for Tojo. Have you seen him?" And the nurse's aide told him, he said, "Well, he was shot down over the Pacific by a naval aviator, so you don't have to worry about him anymore." And he says, "I'm glad they got that, And so just stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to get this book. It's full of stories. They sound amazing. You're an amazing guy, Lawrence. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. It's a calling. I would guess it's a calling, and you are really affecting people's lives, not just the patient, but the families around them as well. Any last thoughts? We're way out of time. I'm getting a signal from my guys. But any last thoughts for our viewers?
There is no spot where God is not.
There is no spot.
And thank you for the interview. It's been great.
Yeah. I'm inspired by you, Lawrence. I really, really appreciate you. Oh, but before we go, let's do this. Here's the cover of the book, everybody. The Spiritual Experiences of Hospice Nurses. I found it on Amazon. Is it other places as well, Lawrence?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books.
All the places.
Goodreads, all of them.
Goodreads, yeah. I have my own Goodreads site. I love Goodreads as well as everything else. Sorry. Here's the book. Get it for Christmas. It's not a bad time of year to pass out something that might have a little spiritual impact on somebody. Our guest, Lawrence James. By the way, find him on Facebook, Spiritual Experiences of Hospice Nurses. And here's his Instagram, too, author Lawrence_James. Thank you, Lawrence, and we'll be back with more Briggs on Books right after this.
Thank you. God bless.